Good morning. Good morning. This is really a privilege to be here. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Kathy, Gillian, Michelle, for the kind introduction. It's a privilege to be here because this room is filled with inspiring people, positive people, people who've changed South Africa much more than I have. And so it really is a privilege to be here amongst you all. And a lot of the work I do speaks to the positive creativity that we actually have in this country around something quite complex, urgent, sometimes quite depressing issues that we tackle on day to day. So we need to celebrate that. And this is a gathering about these people. And just in the few interactions that I had when I started here, it kind of got me inspired and excited again to be here. Trilog has actually issued us with a challenge, with a question. And I'm going to use some of my favorite animals to pose that. And this comes out of the Trilog, and this is the 2011-2012 figures, not the ones we've just seen, but essentially the question Kathy just asked us: how does business with its comparatively small budget contribute to SED and leverage government resources and relationships effectively? With that 1.1% Chihuahua looking up at that Great Dane. So what you saw the title of my talk is, and what the work we do is really looking at innovation in the social sector. So is there a way that we can use that 1.1% a little bit effectively with some innovative thinking? So this is not to my least favorite animal. I'm actually allergic to these guys, so I really, really don't like them. And my family know that whenever the sun goes down and the windows are open, I go around running around, closing all the windows because otherwise it's going to be a nasty night for me. And the reason I've chosen this is actually the previous speaker was going to be talking about partnerships with government. And I thought an example about malaria, something that was announced just a couple of weeks ago at a forum we hosted on impact investing, is called the Mozambique Malaria Performance Bond. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. But it's really about bed nets. And some of the evidence that was done at MIT, at the Poverty Action Lab, showed that investments in bed nets as opposed to treating malaria was highly, highly effective. And that was through randomized controlled trials, and they looked at roughly investments of $14 per bed net, created a lifetime of returns in tens of thousands of dollars for every child's life saved. The problem is, Mozambican government can't afford to invest in bed nets today while they're currently running the clinics treating people with malaria. So how does one overcome that kind of challenge? So I'm using quite a complicated structure to actually just show an example of how innovation is starting to shape a number of ways people are thinking about approaching complex problems, but also about partnership approaches. So innovation is a partnership, and also about collaboration. So I haven't shown the exact structure of the malaria bond because it still is confidential, but essentially the basic structure of a social impact bond, you don't need to know the details of it, but essentially they're called pay for success bonds. So governments will pay once the program has proven its effectiveness, once the social outcomes and targets and metrics are met. And what they do is they go to the private sector to leverage the funding for the pilot to take the risk to prove the program. And that way, they can continue running the clinics that they do, and meanwhile raise private sector funding for this BedNet program. And they've done that. And the investors are a range of investors from corporate philanthropy, CSI money, from social investors, and even some commercial investors. And interestingly, the delivery agency is a company, and they're incentivized and they're accountable on social metrics, not on commercial metrics. And so after the pilot period, the corporate investors have invested in saying, okay, let's try in this particular district, let's see if actually implementing bed nets can reduce the incidence of malaria. And what happens is the government can see, okay, there are cost savings coming. So they can take their future cost savings and then start paying back almost on a bond-like structure. That's why it's called a bond. It's not really a bond. So I just wanted to show you, in the world out there are innovations happening in form, in legal forms, in how companies are structured, in the function of what we think is a traditional for-profit and non-profit, and also in finance.